Hi guys, today I'm going to do a video on AI and talk about the 7 levels of AI. AI has been in the public conscience for a while now because of all the stuff that's happening right now in that space. Now, there's a lot of mystery to AI for a lot of folks, and that's mostly because we see AI as this big nebulous black box and we really don't understand a whole lot about what it is and what it means. AI can be applied to a lot of different things though. A lot of the things that we use every day have AI in them and have for years. And then there are concepts in AI that haven't been invented yet. And there's a lot of middle ground in between those. Now, of course, the different levels of AI have different implications on things that we take for granted. Like, is it going to take over my job, or is it going to take over the world? Or what happens when it ends up in the hands of bad actors? There's a lot of those kinds of implications that we could talk about, but this is mostly to hopefully give you some context to the conversation so that you understand kind of where we've come from, where we're at, and where we're going. And then hopefully that will help quell some of the fear around what AI is capable of in the current state, and maybe what it's going to be able to do even in the immediate and far future. So let's talk about the 7 different levels of AI. I'm going to give you the level, which is 1 through 7, of course, the name of it, and talk about what it is, and then give you an example of it. There are actually multiple examples you can give in many of these domains, but generally speaking, there are some things that really do exemplify these. Now, the first level is level 1. Now, level 1 is basically what we call rules-based AI. And this is something that we use every single day. If you're using something like a simple video game like Pong, or even some more sophisticated video games, it's all based on rules that are programmed by a developer into the software that drives the particular function of whatever it is you're using. So if you're using something as simple as a microwave, you punch in the power, you punch in a time, and that gives parameters to a set of rules that turn the microwave on. It runs for so long, and then after the time runs out, it turns the microwave off. And all of that logic is the set of rules that we might call an AI for driving that microwave. Now, of course, that's fairly simple, but if you get more sophisticated, you would get things like more complex video games or software that you might be running on your computer, or an app that you're running on your phone. All of these are based on rules, and that is the most basic form of AI. It has been around since the earliest days of computers. So the second level of AI is context-aware AI. Now, with each progression in AI, what you end up having is some kind of increase in the ability of the AI to recognize more vague input. So with a video game and rules-based systems, you're basically punching in buttons to give it a very specific parameter. So my microwave example, I'm giving it a time and a power setting, which are pretty straightforward. Now, context-aware AI has a context. So if I'm interacting with something like a chatbot or digital assistant, there's a context to that. So if I call up to my ISP and I get one of those automated response systems, it's going to expect me to say certain kinds of words. And then based on the context, my ISP being the context, it's going to be able to direct my call to the appropriate party on the other end of the line. So context aware is able to take a little bit more vague input and use some heuristics to basically get me the output that I want from that AI. It's not that sophisticated, but it's more sophisticated than what you would get with something like a rules-based system. So context-aware AI is about taking your input and trying to get you to a specific outcome. And so those outcomes are fairly well defined. So in the case of the automated response system, that could be billing, technical support, or some other department. The third kind of AI, though, is what we call domain-specific AI. And domain-specific AI is more focused on a single outcome. So that's the biggest difference. So all of the inputs for this particular one are going to be aimed at a specific outcome, and it becomes what we call an expert system. So one way that this is being used is in medical diagnostics imaging. Now, if we think about something like cancer, where it's typically ranked in stages, what we have is we have basically a group of people that have no cancer, then stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And it's more of a gradient because it's not exactly a specific demarcation between one stage and the next stage, but it's more of a gradient. And what we can do with AI is we can take those images and feed them into a model. So one group of images would represent a group of people that have no cancer. Another one would be like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And then we label them and we feed them into an AI training algorithm that analyzes all of those images, and it produces what we call an AI model. So once the AI model has been built, what you do is you take images that were from outside the model and you feed them into the model. And then the model then processes those images, and then it will then produce some kind of result with a confidence score. Now, what I just described in terms of AI is what we call supervised learning, and it's based on what we do know. What's really cool with AI, though, is whenever we allow the AI to discover certain correlations in the data, and this is where it's able to discover things in the data that we might not have been able to see before. With unsupervised learning, basically what we do is we just take all those images and we feed them into the computer, and then the computer is able to correlate one set of images with another set of images. And what this gives us is the ability to find features in, say, maybe the benign group that serve as an early warning for something that might later develop into cancer. And so it gives us another tool for early diagnostics. And this is where they're able to use something like AI to discover things in cancer research and cancer diagnosis that we weren't previously aware of. So domain-specific AI is state of the art right now, and it's being applied in more than just medical diagnostics. Another one where it's being applied quite broadly is in things like machinery. So it's able to do predictive maintenance on things so that your car doesn't break down, or maybe it keeps a plane from crashing or something like that. So the next one is level 4, and it's called a reasoning system. Now, a reasoning system is basically the combination of context-aware AI and domain-specific AI. And the way it works is it tries to not only understand the broad context and get you to a specific solution, but it also becomes an expert system in that solution as well. So go back to the example that I mentioned earlier with the automated response system that's trying to get me to either billing or technical support. Now, ChatGPT is not only trying to get me to billing or technical support, it's trying to be billing or technical support at the same time. And that's where it might take on the role of a domain-specific AI as well. So ChatGPT has a large context, and within that large context, it has a lot of domain-specific AIs that it can apply to different problems. The other day, I was using it to research RTSP doorbells so I could plug one of those into my security system. And I was then the next day using it to get code samples that I could then take and put into an app that I was writing. So in both cases, it was a domain specific AI in its recommendations and what it is able to produce in terms of code, but it's also context aware in that it is able to get me to those results as well, just based on what I was asking it. So given that ChatGPT and reasoning systems are kind of the cutting edge of AI right now, everything beyond this is what we might call science fiction. So the fifth level of AI is what we call general intelligence or artificial general intelligence. And this is data from Star Trek. So this is where we start to move into a self-aware robot that is able to respond in a meaningful way to input that we give it. So it's basically feature parity with a human. He's able to understand what the context of the conversation that he might be having, and he's able to respond in a way that we would expect him to, like another human being would. And that's what we consider to be a general intelligence. It's able to consume information. It's able to digest that information. It's able to respond to that information. It's able to learn. And more importantly, it's self-aware of what it's actually doing. So the next example is what we call a superintelligence, and this would be Skynet from something like the Terminator series. Now, a superintelligence is basically general intelligence taking it up a level, and this one is going to be very powerful, and it's going to have access to a lot of data and a lot of knowledge, and is able to control a lot of different aspects. But it's not to the point where it becomes godlike or anything close to that. It's still much more intelligent than maybe a human being or a collection of human beings, but it's not powerful enough that it could definitely overthrow human beings or enslave human beings at that point. And these are portrayed as malevolent AIs that are fighting against some kind of humanity that is going to try to destroy this because at some point the AI took over humanity. And that's typically a trope in science fiction. It's the next one that it becomes godlike. And that's where we get into what we call a technological singularity. And in technological singularity, you have something where the technology or the AI is basically godlike, and it controls all the resources. It controls every aspect of what is the environment that it's operating in. It could be be planet scale like it is in the Matrix, or it could be galaxy scale, or it could even be universe scale, depending on what context we're talking about. But the difference between the superintelligence and the technological singularity is basically the godlike status of the technological singularity in all aspects of what it is able to control and what it is able to know and what it's able to do. So having gone through the 7 levels of AI, as I said a minute ago, the cutting edge is reasoning systems. So we're just dipping our toe into level 4 at this point. There's a long way to go before we get to any kind of general intelligence. There's a lot of things that have to happen, and we're really not even sure what those things are yet. So there's still a lot of research and development that's still got to happen, even in reasoning systems, before we even get close to anything that's even resembling a general intelligence. So how soon we get to a general AI is really open for anybody's speculation. Some say 5 years, some say 50, some people say never. Really just don't know as of right now if we'll ever even get to that. It's just speculation at this point. But there's certainly things that we can be concerned about AI in the current context. ChatGPT has certainly shown us what we might be capable of with AI. Now, the fact that it can generate really good code is one of those things that people are concerned about, because it might make certain aspects of software development obsolete and people lose their jobs. And certainly that is a concern. There are other concerns about ethical concerns around how it might be used for malevolent intent. There are things around IP. There are certainly things that we could discuss. I'm not going to get into a lot of those, but at the end of the day, there are certainly things that we can discuss now that will have implications on AI in the future. And if we can figure out how to govern the AI that we do have, maybe that will give us a better handle on the future of AI as well.
If you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button. You can also like this content by clicking on the thumbs up, or share this content with your friends, and also comment in the comment section down below. You can also find me online at www.blaze.net or on Twitter at @TheOneMule. And as always, thanks for watching.